If you're new to Dungeons and Dragons, you might not recognize the Modron. They kind of look like box or spherical shaped robots, and they've long been a part of D&D, and in later editions they became kind of the identifier of law. Just as angels are good and demons are evil, Modrons represent law as an absolute. So let's look at the Modron's inner workings and see what lore you could use for your game. This video is sponsored by Roll for Combat for their Kickstarter Battle Zoo Eldamon. Befriend, train, battle, and evolve various magical creatures with new classes and subclasses to make use of these powerful monsters. 3 books are in this Kickstarter, and I've been particularly interested in the Battle Zoo Bestiary Strange and Unusual, with over 150 new monsters for your party to battle, as well as monster parts crafting systems. The Kickstarter is live right now, so check it out today by clicking the link in the description, and thanks again, Roll for Combat. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and let's talk about Modrons.
I'm a little Modron, short and stout.
The Modrons hail from the clockwork nirvana of Mechanus, an outer plane of absolute law on the great planar wheel. Much of the outer planes represent a combination of good, evil, law, and chaos. They are infinitely big, and the creatures there are sometimes a byproduct of the energy that is infused in the plane. Modrons have no origin story that I could find. They are probably a strange byproduct of the lawfulness of the plane. Modrons aren't constructed, though, or born, really. They come from a liquid pool of pure order. Modrons that die disappear, and their energy returns to this pool, where new Modrons are then created. There may be, in fact, a finite amount of Modrons possible, a mathematical balance to the Modron race. Modrons look mechanical to a point. They are, in fact, a mix of biological and mechanical components. Considered living constructs, they are not powered by a bound elemental or they're magically animated. Instead, they should be considered more like angels or devils than constructs, despite their appearance. Now, extensive yet cruel dissections have been performed on Modrons to understand their inner workings, and because they disappear when they die, a Modron must be kept alive when studying its internal parts. Now, there are rumors of mages that have replaced human body parts with those of a Modron in horrible experiments. A subject's life then becomes tied to the Modron in this instance. If the Modron is killed, they disappear, and the transplanted body parts or organs also disappear. The subject dies. Now, if the subject dies, the Modron will die as well from a still unknown connection. Modrons come in geometric shapes, spheres, cubes, tetrahedrons, but wilder shapes occur the more powerful the Modron is. Now, because of their hierarchy, when a upper Modron dies, a lower one is transformed and elevated to take their place. The Monodrones, which are the lowest in the hierarchy, now if they die, well, there's nobody really to take their place, and so they are reformed in Mechanus. Modrons take orders from those above them, and depending on their place in the hierarchy, they can only do a set number of orders or tasks. Monodrones, for example, can only retain 1 order at a time. In the Forgotten Realms, Modrons were discovered in -346 DR. An explorer and archmage during the time of Karsus and the Netherese named Lady Polaris opened a gateway to Mechanus. No, not Lorna, the Netherese wizard Polaris. Now, she traveled and discovered Mechanus, and afterwards she pulled 5 decathlon Modrons to the Forgotten Realms. She wanted to use them as guards for her vault of magical treasure. Now, these Modrons would stay in place for about 5 days, or actually 5 days exactly, and then they would mysteriously disappear. Polaris went back and pulled a different set of Modrons, this time being the Pentadrones, and they have remained for 7 years thus far. It is unknown if the Pentadrone Modrons are still guarding this lost vault of the Forgotten Realms, as Lady Polaris was killed during Karsus's folly in -339 DR. And I know Deca means 10 and Penta is 5, so I'm not really sure if this was a typo or not, or the mystery of the Modrons is greater than we know. Modrons are probably best known for the event called the Great Modron March. Every 289 years, an unstoppable horde of Modrons exit Mechanus and navigate through all of the outer planes of existence. No one is sure as to why this happens, but it literally happens like clockwork. The largest gear in the largest city in Mechanus makes one full rotation every 289 years. This is called a grand cycle and is divided up into 17 smaller cycles, each of which take 17 years. When the Great March occurs, it is best to get out of the Modrons' way. Those who have witnessed it before know to stand aside and let the Modrons pass. Some destruction may occur, but there is really no stopping them. Some believe the Great Modron March is a way for the Modrons to take a census of the outer planes. Others think it's a way to instigate some order in chaos, but ultimately we don't know. And the only one who really does is Primus, the deity-like figure that controls all Modrons, and Primus isn't really taking any questions at this time. A popular and, might I say, just really cool Planescape adventure for AD&D 2nd edition is called The Great Modron March, where the Modrons have started their march 100 years or so too early. And you get to follow them around the plains trying to solve the mystery that is, why are the Modrons marching so soon? Very fun, links down below if you're interested. Now, the last Great Modron March occurred in 1336 DR, according to the half-elven paladin of Ogma that documented the journey of the Modrons through the plains. His name was Ambran the Seeker, and this would put the next scheduled Modron March at 1625 DR. The lost Modrons in the adventure Out of the Abyss for 5e say that they were lost for about 200 years in the Underdark since the last march, which would put the Modron March at 1290 DR-ish. So ultimately, we don't really know when the last march was, like, definitively, which is a little weird for Modrons. You think that we would know. But you kind of get to choose who you want to believe. And I'm going to believe the Paladin of Ogma more than the crazed Modrons stuck in the Underdark. Although Modrons are part of a whole and work together for a common goal, sometimes they can break off and go rogue. These Modrons are called rogue Modrons, and they don't follow orders from superior Modrons. They are cut off from the rest of Modron kind and wander the multiverse. Many rogue Modrons come from conflicting orders or programming, and this could lead to some Modrons losing the stability of their mind and, well, just the stability of instructions. Now, if you find a Modron, perhaps you could stun them with, "This sentence isn't true," and see if they shut down.
I sleep in a drawer.
Now, whatever the cause, rogue Modrons are often hunted down without mercy by their fellow Modrons. When rogue Modrons die, they disappear and return to Mechanus. Now, these Modrons don't necessarily want to die, so you'll often see rogue Modrons making a life for themselves away from Mechanus. Some get stuck with particular orders and are unable to complete the task, wandering forever, or at least till their energy resources wear out. There is some older material that would allow a player to play a rogue Modron in a campaign, and if you Google Modron player race, you'll find some 5e homebrew that works great. There was a Modron party member in the Planescape Torment PC game that runs around with you, well, if you recruit him, and his name was Nordom, which is Modron backwards. Good job, TSR. Modrons are an interesting part of Dungeons & Dragons, and I hope that we see another Great Modron March incorporated into an event at some point. Thank you, Roll for Combat, for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the Kickstarter in the description below. Thank you for watching this video and sharing it with your gaming group. I would love to have you subscribe, and if you super want to help out, there is a Patreon link down below. Thank you again, everybody, and I will see you all in the next video.
Sense of closure imminent.